Good morning, it's Kai Holloway. It's the 5th of March 2017 on the Gregorian calendar. Today I would like to talk about complacency and apathy. There are many problems with our world at this time, and in my thoughts there is one main attitude which must change for any improvement to come to any fruition. Complacency is like a dead virus dormant in your system, ready to kill your goals and dreams. It has the power to rob you blind of new experience, positive change and personal growth. The worst thing about complacency is that the infected person is usually unaware that he or she is at risk because they feel no pain. Typically, you're in your comfort zone. There are signs that you may be at risk. You just have to look for them, be aware of them, and most importantly, take action. So many people live within unhappy circumstances and yet will not take the initiative to change their situation because they are conditioned to a life of security, conformity and conservatism, all of which may appear to give one peace of mind, but in reality nothing is more dangerous to the adventurous spirit within a man than a secure future. The very basic core of a man's living spirit is his passion for adventure. The joy of life comes from our encounters with new experiences, and hence there is no greater joy than to have an endlessly changing horizon, for each day to have a new and different sun. We don't think about our basic needs until we are deprived. We take breathing for granted until we are deprived of oxygen. We don't usually think about sleep until we are tired. We don't think about food until we are hungry. And then we eat, but do we think about what we are eating? Today food is readily accessible to us. We trade money for food, but we don't work for food directly. Complacency accounts for a lack of food planning. Because we are not working directly for this basic need, we undervalue it. Generally, we are not farmers anymore. We are lazy. We do not grow our own food, for we are powerful consumers, not producers, useless eaters if you like. Corporations and industry supply the food that our families eat, but can we trust corporations with our subsistence? Corporations have no family and no conscience, but they do have a profit and shareholders to care for. The more we trust our food to money, the less involved we are. And the less we think as we grab a bag of so-called potato chips or crisps to satisfy a craving, it's hard for us to imagine anything else. In past times, finding food was our main activity, and even recently families would have to plan months, even years in advance to ensure they would be fed. Today, people plan for money, not food. People don't know what they eat anymore, and they are disgusted to find out. Our food is vastly processed and would often bear no resemblance to food in its original form. One cannot fake a basic need like sleep, but food can be faked. We eat trash in fancy packages. It is easy to satisfy hunger, so it is easy to disregard food. And while the way we undervalue food affects our personal health, there are other repercussions. Most food purchases are imported from locations far from our communities. Local food is hard to come by. The local economy suffers as capitalism takes over. Not only does this support the heavy industrial production of food for profit, but there is an environmental cost as well. Transportation over such distances has a real effect. Damaging emissions not only produce smoke, they lead to polluting our planet. Also, crops are typically dosed in mysterious chemicals from Monsanto, which damage communities and individual consumers in ways that are only just becoming visible now. By taking food money away from our community, we discourage local farming and become dependent on just a few businesses for food. Clearly, there are significant benefits to buying local food, but when we don't care about nutrition, we can hardly be expected to care about our food's origin, can we? Our complacency with food is a problem in society. Doubtless our reckless consumption is a threat to lives. Because food is not valued significantly, our nutrition and environment are neglected, and while we eat with surplus and impunity, children die each day of starvation. Food is essential to the proper function of our bodies. Without food we cannot live, and without proper food we cannot be healthy. Even though we probably can't all become farmers, you can all grow something in your back garden. We can pay more attention to the food we eat. If we eat with prudence and shop with discretion and judgment, we can benefit our own lives and make an impact in the world around us. But this is part of the problem. The choices that we make, we're too apathetic and complacent, and we couldn't care less. Among the body's systems is one of paramount importance, the autonomic nervous system, which controls many of the body's major functions automatically without any conscious input from yourself. In order to function correctly, part of which is body healing and rebuilding, the autonomic nervous system needs to be supplied with real food. The true nutrients, proteins, carbohydrates, fats, enzymes, vitamins and minerals, etc. provided by real whole foods, and if these are not provided, the autonomic nervous system cannot do its job. Getting that now, autonomic. Chemically altered processed foods depleted of enzymes, fruits and vegetables grown in soils depleted of minerals do not provide the nourishment needed by the autonomic nervous system, and they also give the body new unrecognized substances to deal with that can't be digested properly, and that act as poisons in the body and weaken the organs and glands. Never mind the carcinogenic ingredients and GMOs that we're now getting bludgeoned on us. Anyway, certain well-known so-called soft drinks are highly toxic and shut down the liver and cause diabetes. Their diet counterparts are even worse and create symptoms that mirror the symptoms of MS, lupus, fibromyalgia and others. Foods radiated in microwaves become carcinogenic to the body, and people can also become allergic to or intolerant of everyday foods. Enzyme deficiency, irritants such as alcohol and drugs, chemical preservatives, antibiotics, food allergies and toxins also create intestinal inflammation and contribute to the intestinal walls starting to leak those toxins and foodstuffs into the bloodstream. This leads not only to nutritional deficiencies, but also the body starting to attack itself and its own tissues and causing further allergies and all manner of unpleasant symptoms. People also get battered about by the stresses from life and the strains and various toxicities of the environment, particularly prevalent in hairspray, shampoos, facial and skin products for women, toxic mercury leaking out of the fillings and root canals, and the result is that their bodies, improperly nourished by fake foods, cannot properly respond to these stresses or even to correct nutritional treatments. As the body starts to fall apart, organ by organ, the bacteria starts moving in. They don't cause the problem, they come after the problem is caused. If you don't address the real problems, the body will not be able to repair the organs. Then people develop a diagnosable disease. Conventional treatment is to suppress the symptoms with more drugs or to use antibiotics to kill all the bacteria, bad and good, which create often worse symptoms. Now the person is really sick, and the doctor doesn't know what's wrong with him, but he can sure suppress the new symptoms and of course give him a whole new collection to deal with, and so the vicious cycle continues and often leads to the by now over toxic organs being cut out of the body by surgery, which creates its own legion of problems, and thus we have people who eventually become medical wreckage with bodies so degenerated that their road back to health can be a very long one indeed, even if they are able to fully recover, and sadly are not. Now this was a piece from a New York practitioner, and I think it's really prevalent to the complacency of what we do to our bodies. Your bodies are a temple, people. You are chucking so many poisons, fluorides, GMOs, carcinogens, and the thing is you're just not stopping, and you are going to die. You are going to get these diseases, and they're all man-made. They're all completely man-made. But the point is, the complacency and the apathy is stopping you from treating your body and putting the right fuel in it. If you continue to put this shit in your body, you are going to die. That's it. Plain and simple. You are going to die. You are killing yourself. So let's think about the complacency with how we shop, what we buy, who we give our money to. These are all things that you have to think about. Let's have a little break. I've got a little cover by an applicable song, Michael Jackson's song, Man in the Mirror, covered by a lovely little girl over in Sweden. I hope you enjoy, and we'll continue this in a minute.
I'm gonna make a change for once in my life. It's gonna feel real good, gonna make a difference, gonna make it right. As I turn up the collar on my favorite winter coat, this wind is blowing my mind. I see kids in the street with not enough to eat. Who am I to be blind, pretending not to see their needs? Where some must disregard the broken bottle top, oh, in one man's soul. They follow each other on the wind, you know, 'cause they got nowhere to go. That's why I want you to know I'm looking at the man in them people, and I'm asking him to change his ways. And no question could be any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and make a change. Oh, make a change. I've been a victim of a selfish kind of love. It's time I realize there are some with no home and not a nickel to loan. Oh, we look deeply scarred, somebody's broken heart, and a washed out dream. They follow the pattern of the wind, you see, 'cause they've got no place to be. That's why I'm starting with me. I'm looking at the man in the mirror, and I'm asking him to change his way. And no question couldn't be any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and make a change. Oh, make a change. Yeah, I'm looking at the man in the mirror, and I'm asking him to change his way. And no question couldn't be any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and make a change. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I hope you enjoyed that lovely little rendition of A Man in the Mirror there, a highly applicable tune in our discussion today about complacency and apathy. And let's continue. Have you read Gustav Lundar's essay Revolution? I think you should. It's a lengthy and filled with names, dates and events that may likely be of little interest to some of you, but within its pages are stirring words about freedom, spirit and a path to liberating the world from its centuries-old bondage to tyranny. Particularly stirring was Lundar's treatment of Etienne de la Bouette, a student of Montaigne, who at the age of 16 wrote Discours sur la servitude volontaire. In Discours, la Bouette examined how the masses so readily relinquish their freedom and power to tyrants, and it's such a great piece, you should really all go and find it. Bouette asks, how can an entire people consisting of countless individuals allow a single person to torture them, abuse them, and rule over them against their interests and against their will? A person, no less, who is neither Hercules nor Samson, but a pathetic man, often the most cowardly and feminine of the whole nation. If we followed nature, we would live as nobody's servant. La Bouette answered that tyranny comes from complacency, what La Bouette calls the voluntary servitude of humanity. Where does this complacency come from? First, la boîte, complacency among the populace exists because generations of people have lived who do not know freedom. Somewhere in the past, either by external force or internal corruption, people lost their freedom to tyrants to the state. Successive generations who have never known freedom tactically accept their servitude to the state. In fact, they do not even know they are enslaved. They assume it's always been this way. Second, the tyrants of the state, whether they are kings or elected representatives, do everything in their power to soften, distract, and divert the attention of the people away from their servitude. To this end, the state supports buggery, flirtation, playfulness, gluttony, and unmanliness among their people. 20th century translation: an overly sexualized culture, immaturity, obsession with organized sports, Hollywood entertainment, food, and fashion. Does it remind you of anyone? Third, the state co-opts religion and aligns itself with its priests so that the state and the priests represent the same interests, namely fear, warring and hating the other. In our day, much of the church and the state propagandize the complacent populace to fear people of brown skin, free thinkers, foreigners and other religions. Meanwhile, the church and its sheepish followers give to the state an aura of divinity. The crown came to be surrounded by miracles and the king equipped with holiness and divinity. In other words, the populace is taught by the church to worship its government and its so-called representatives. Here come the waving flags, patriotic songs, busts of generals and presidents, Facebook posts of soldiers kneeling in a prayer at a cross with an automatic weapon in the hand. The pledges of allegiance to the flag. You get the idea. Fourth, says La Boîte, people voluntarily enter into servitude to the state because a special class places itself between the king and the people. The member of this class profit from the king, from the people, and from their peers. This is a government class in all its various manifestations. The military-industrial complex, corporate officers, tax collectors, regulators, overseers of the war on drugs, police, and so on. Common people are outside the structure and have no real power. The vote, free speech, and constitution are powerless and silly and pathetic in the face of the power class. This creates apathy and complacency among a helpless populace. What can be done to awaken the populace to its voluntary servitude? It is not easy. The state propaganda machine is well oiled. It shows up everywhere and regularly, reminds us who is in charge, and it constantly reminds us of the state's superiority and holiness. Go to any public school, sporting event, country fair, or worship service. The propaganda machine is always running. Where there is a flag, there is reinforcement of voluntary servitude. Landor offers his solution, and he says the answer is in within you and me. He writes, tyranny is not a fire that has to be or can be extinguished. It is not an external evil. It is an internal flaw. The fire of tyranny cannot be fought from the outside with water. It is a source that has to be eliminated. The people who feed it must stop doing so. Do not need to take anything away from the tyrant. They must only stop giving to him. When the tyrant does not receive and is no longer obeyed, he ends up naked, without force and without power. He ends up being nothing. He shares the fate of a root that is left without water and nourishment. It turns into a dry, dead piece of wood. But declining to give and to obey the state is not enough, said Landor. We must be guided by a spirit that creates an anxiety that helps us to be committed to transition and progress. This mystical anxiety-inducing but freeing spirit comes over us as we awaken to our voluntary servitude. It stirs us to commit to undoing our relationship to tyranny. We are inspired to form a new relationship, an organic community, with others who also have awakened to their servitude and who also now desire freedom. Thus, liberating spirit is within you and me. Landor goes on to say that La Boîte, Godwin, Stirner, Prodkon, Bakunin, and Tolstoy each tell us the same thing. The message is, it's in you. It's not on the outside, it is you. I'll tell you, that's a hell of a prophetic message. The message, it is in you. It's not on the outside, it is in you. I'm going to pick a little bit out of the Bible now. There are some good little moral stories in there. And here's a little piece, little story. Satan, in a fanciful vignette, summoned 3 demons before him and gave them a project. You are to go throughout the earth, he commanded, and I want you to deceive as many people as you possibly can. Cause them to be lost. But before you go, I want to hear how you plan to deceive them. The first demon stepped forward and said, I'm going to tell all these people that there is no God. Satan shook his head, saying, that would work on a few people, but most wouldn't buy it. There is too much evidence that a creator exists. I reject your plan because it won't deceive many people. The second demon came before him and said confidently, I will teach everybody that there is no hell. Satan just laughed. People know better than that. They know there is a place where unrepentant sinners will burn, never to live again. Your plan will never work either. It might deceive a few people, but eventually they would catch on to you. The third demon rose and said, I will tell them that there is no need to hurry. Satan said, go. You will deceive everybody. I leave you with these words from John Hancock, my good friends. I conjure you, by all that is dear, by all that is honourable, by all that is sacred, not only that you pray, but that you act. My name is Kai Holloway, and I thank you for listening to our little sermon here today. And I hope you're well. I hope you love each other. You are the change people. It's not out there, it's in you.
I'm sorry, but I don't want to be an emperor. That's not my business. I don't want to rule or conquer anyone. I should like to help everyone if possible. Jew, Gentile, black man, white. We all want to help one another. Human beings are like that. We want to live by each other's happiness, not by each other's misery. We don't want to hate and despise one another. In this world, there's room for everyone, and the good earth is rich and can provide for everyone. The way of life can be free and beautiful, but we have lost the way. Greed has poisoned men's souls, has barricaded the world with hate, has goose-stepped us into misery and bloodshed. We have developed speed, but we have shut ourselves in. Machinery that gives abundance has left us in want. Our knowledge has made us cynical, our cleverness hard and unkind. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity. More than cleverness, we need kindness and gentleness. Without these qualities, life will be violent, and all will be lost. The aeroplane and the radio have brought us closer together. The very nature of these inventions cries out for the goodness in men, cries out for universal brotherhood, for the unity of us all. Even now, my voice is reaching millions throughout the world, millions of despairing men, women, and little children, victims of a system that makes men torture and imprison innocent people. To those who can hear me, I say, do not despair. The misery that is now upon us is but the passing of greed, the bitterness of men who fear the way of human progress. The hate of men will pass, and dictators die, and the power they took from the people will return to the people. And so long as men die, liberty will never perish. Soldiers, don't give yourselves to brutes, men who despise you, enslave you, who regiment your lives, tell you what to do, what to think, and what to feel, who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle, use you as cannon fodder. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men with machine minds and machine hearts. You are not machines, you are not cattle, you are men. You have the love of humanity in your hearts. You don't hate, only the unloved hate, the unloved and the unnatural. Soldiers, don't fight for slavery, fight for liberty. In the 17th chapter of St. Luke it is written, the kingdom of God is within man, not one man nor a group of men, but in all men, in you. You, the people, have the power to create machines, the power to create happiness. You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful, to make this life a wonderful adventure. Then in the name of democracy, let us use that power. Let us all unite. Let us fight for a new world, a decent world, that will give men a chance to work, that will give youth a future and old age a security. By the promise of these things, brutes have risen to power, but they lie. They do not fulfill that promise. They never will. Dictators free themselves, but they enslave the people. Now let us fight to fulfill that promise. Let us fight to free the world, to do away with national barriers, to do away with greed, with hate and intolerance. Let us fight for a world of reason, a world where science and progress will lead to all men's happiness. Soldiers, in the name of democracy, let us all unite!